We change things. So right now it's 150 a month. But if you now you can make stuff, but they don't allow you to make something that's over a minute long with the trading. Before it was pretty like they used to just block like maybe using certain things and that didn't matter how long.
So why are you using it?
I still use video, but I'm just paying for a subscription.
Yeah. This is a video on your editing.
No, I'm not editing, I'm streaming live now. I'm live on my YouTube channel.
Oh, I'm so good.
Yeah, it's because here the sound is not muted. It's just mute. Let's move.
Imagine. Zichagadzirika kana. Achigadzirike Friday. Sexy. Oi. When does Zunyanya noise? Like, that's my question. When does Ubazanyanya noise? Noise, I say Anyanya.
What's good there, guys? What's good? What's good? What's good? I'm back in the building, guys. I'm back in the building. Sorry about that wait. Yeah, I just had to make sure everything is running okay for us to go ahead with the session. Let me do myself a favor. Let me just take out my phone headsets and just put my PC headsets on, just so I can hear you guys. If you guys maybe ask some stuff there. Okay, we all good, we all good, we all good. Okay, let's pause this. Save some of my phone battery. Okay, yeah, let's get some stuff done here. Let's get some stuff done. Let's just do this. Okay, let's share some screen, guys. Let's share some screen. Go. Okay, so we're gonna get started, guys. We're gonna get started. Let me just make sure, because we are streaming this on YouTube, guys. We are streaming our thing on my YouTube channel, so I just want to make sure that that's also okay. Those people can see as well. Yo, Tirelo, what's good there, man? What's good there? I see you there in the building, man. What's good, man? That's good, that's good, that's good. That's okay. Seems like YouTube was 100%, guys. Seems like the stream is also okay. Yeah, let's get to cracking, guys. Let's get to cracking. So we're looking at the DXY. We're looking at the DXY. Actually, let me pull out my mouse, guys. Let's pull out my mouse. Let's not use the trackpad. Okay. Yeah, you can be a lot more faster with a mouse. Cool, guys. So we're gonna get started here on the DXY. I think let me just go up to the weekly. I just want to get a glance at how the weekly closed this week. Let's just see what happened this week. Okay, bullish close, nice. Okay, let's just go back onto the daily. We'll get started with our analysis. Let's hide this as well so we can see what's on our chart here. So if we just stick to the most recent price action and we still pay attention to the structure that we were looking at over the space of last week, we'd see that dollar is in some sort of an ascending structure. I think we've broken out of that ascending structure in our most recent price action. We'll just see now. Okay, cool. Yes, we've broken out of that most recent structure, and then we've broken back into the structure. We've broken and closed back into the structure. So we're kind of looking for some dollar weakness. We wanted to see maybe some dollar selling going on there. But nonetheless, we can see that prices are being corrective around this resistance trend line. So what I'll do, I don't think I wanna use any of these structures on my left-hand side because we were using some structures inside of here. Maybe if there was a structure I would use, maybe it's probably this structure as my last structure, or only structure that I'd probably use, because it's the last area where I see momentum coming in. We see a nice bearish engulfing there in that area, giving us indication of momentum. Before these structures were violated, maybe even before these structures here were violated, we can see momentum came in, like last area where momentum most recently came in was just right there. So I guess maybe in terms of an area, or just to be fast to be specific on resistance, that's the only area that I would probably use now. So looking at things already on the daily, we can see that we at this resistance area of this multi-touch structure. So obviously warranting us to begin looking for some sell bias trading opportunities. But then at the same time, we can obviously see that prices are being a little bit corrective around our resistance trend line. So what we're going to be doing on the 4-hour, yes, we will still be bearish considering that we're at resistance. We're in and around resistance, and as well as there is resistance up there that we're running towards. And as well as this new daily resistance that price created right here, we're running towards that resistance. So in terms of risk to reward ratio, if we look to buy and follow through on the strength, we won't be getting a lot of risk to reward ratio. But if we're looking for trades in the opposite direction in terms of sells, you guys can see that we obviously need to manage by the time we get to these important support structures and maybe our support trend line. So there's more risk to reward ratio going down than there is going up. So obviously we do know that we're bearish bias, looking for some sell bias trading opportunities. So when we go down onto the 4-hour, let me just make sure that everyone is muted here, just so the sound is clear. When we go down onto the 4-hour, you guys know that we're only mainly paying attention to the nature of how price action is doing, whatever it's doing. And then obviously we're looking at those points of interest where we can find trading opportunities. So obviously we can see that 4-hour is in some sort of a bullish trend. We've got some extreme support down here, resistance, new support. We've got higher highs, we've got higher lows, we've got higher highs, we've got higher lows. Cool. So we understand that the 4-hour is in some sort of an uptrend. If we just take a look at the most recent price action on the 4-hour, just get an idea of what this uptrend looks like just by kind of connecting just the most recent support touches over there, just to get an idea of this whole structure that we've got going there. I guess if we just take into account that and then we look at the extreme structure. So by extreme structure, I'm kind of talking about, maybe you can consider it to be slightly higher time frame structure, but I'm talking about this structure from support. We've got resistance, we've got new support, new lower lows. After we've broken above these highs, where's the next extreme highs to have been formed? Probably, maybe I would say these next extreme highs up here. We then find price action coming down low. So you guys can see that maybe if we look at just extreme support and extreme resistance, yes, we are still kind of trending very nicely, but it gives us the opportunity to isolate a nice structure that aligns with our bias, obviously by just accommodating for these extreme resistance areas. So just accommodating for our bias, yes, it feels to me a little bit like we're forcing this structure, forcing a descending structure out of this pair. But I guess just to accommodate for our descending, our bearish bias, and as well as the fact that we don't have a lot to work with on our left-hand side, besides maybe just the specific area up there. Maybe we just want to get a little bit more context, see if prices do violate these resistance areas, where could we be coming to maybe give another structure that might give us an opportunity to sell? Maybe we might be coming to this resistance trend line up here, who knows? But otherwise, so for obviously we're looking at these points of interest on the 4-hour. So looking at points of interest, obviously that support our bearish bias, we have to be selling at some resistance areas. So looking at the resistance, the only resistance that we've got here, important resistance, is this resistance up here. So what we're going to be doing is waiting for prices to come to this extreme resistance. Maybe we want to see prices violating these higher structures up there, or obviously maybe if we see prices maybe stalling again and giving us some momentum to the downside, then we might look for those continuation structures. But already from a daily, we've concluded that we can look for those sell bias trading opportunities because we are at this resistance trend line at that third touch. And we can see that prices are being corrective around this resistance trend line by breaking above, closing above, breaking below, closing below. We've now broken back above and closed back above. So because we've been corrective around this resistance area, it's giving us indication of corrective price action. So we're looking for a corrective structure. So we understand that whatever corrective structure that's going to form in this area here is either going to be a continuation corrective structure for bullish continuation, or it's going to be a reversal corrective structure for bearish bias price action. So obviously, because we're bearish bias on the higher time frame, we're going to be focused on looking for bearish bias structure. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing here on the DXY, sell bias, looking for some sell bias trading opportunities. So let's go on to our first pair, guys. We're going to go into some Aussie CAD. Let's go on to our daily. I absolutely love, man, I absolutely love Aussie CAD. I don't remember if I don't think we took, I don't think I sent a signal on Aussie CAD over the course of last week, but I know I did get into a sell. I was a little bit premature on the sell. I didn't think the sell was going to come on Friday. I thought the sell was going to come on Thursday. Because Wednesday also gave a nice pin to the upside. This is kind of, if you guys can see the price action. So Monday gave an indication of where we are going. Tuesday closed as a red candlestick. Wednesday gave a nice pin, so rejection to the upside. So I was expecting that maybe, okay, momentum was probably going to come in on Thursday, and then Friday was maybe just going to move sideways the whole day, but it was kind of the inverse. So I was a bit premature on the sell that I jumped into because I didn't get anywhere with that trade, just break-even trade more than anything. But yeah, coming into Aussie CAD here on the daily, let's just look at what we've got higher time frame. So higher time frame on the daily, we've still got this higher time frame structure that we're going to be referencing. We've been referencing from last year, guys. From last year, May last year, we jumped into this overall larger corrective structure, and we've been trading this pair. Like every single move that we see up and down, we've been involved in. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Like in terms of experiential knowledge, that's kind of why I've blessed myself by only looking at a specific set of pairs every single week, because I can say with such confidence that every single thing that has happened on every one of these pairs throughout for the past 2 years, every single thing that has happened on these pairs, I've been involved in some sort of way, whether I've looked at it, whether I've paid attention, whether I've forecasted, whether I've been wrong, whether I've been whatever, I've been involved in the price action. So I've got like 2 years worth of experiential knowledge just on these pairs alone. So I guess, guys, work towards refining your pairs and kind of just working down. Obviously, when you start off and you're a beginner, you start to generalize, you spread your basket wide so that you can get a lot of different experiences because you're still starting out. But once you start getting that experiential knowledge, then obviously at that point, you start to refine based off your experiential knowledge, you start to cut things out and then only start to focus mainly more on specific other things. So otherwise, getting into Aussie CAD, we still got this descending structure, not really important for us to reference now, but main thing that we want to look at in this descending structure is previous resistance that we see prices violating nice and impulsively. So we've got this previous resistance up there, and we see a nice strong momentum violating this previous resistance, higher time frame resistance. So obviously we do understand that we can be looking at this resistance for some sort of a retest or whatever the case is. We know that we want to be bullish bias based off the structure, based off the momentum that we see coming into the market. So definitely, for sure, we're going to be bullish bias. Now coming into what we've got here on the 4 hour, we're going to be primarily bullish bias, guys. Higher time frame, we want to be bullish bias. We want to be jumping in on some bullish momentum. So looking at the overall structure here on a 4 hour, now what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to be giving you guys both a sell bias and a bullish, both a bearish bias and a bullish bias, because I also still do want to align myself on the sell side of things. I still do see potential for Aussie CAD, maybe to just give me a larger corrective structure. We might even violate this support structure that we're going to be talking about now. We might even violate the support structure, who knows? But I just also want to allow myself to trade both sides of Aussie CAD for next week. So we're going to be primarily be focusing on bullish bias setups because of the higher time frame structure. But if we do find a sell bias on a sell bias trade on a smaller time frame, which we'll discuss just now, then we'll also take that. So looking at the 4 hour momentum, obviously we see everything is extremely bullish. Lows, highs, lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, equal highs, higher lows. So we focused on this area here. We've got new resistance. Cool. We've got new resistance. So these are the support structures basically that are holding our price action as bullish bias price action. And as long as price stays above this 4 hour low, then we are still bullish bias in terms of maybe what we're expecting on a higher time frame perspective. So looking at our lowest buy, we're still going to be looking at this lowest buy, guys. We've got this nice bearish candlestick. So obviously we're looking at previous support, that market where we saw bias. We're looking at where did we see the bias come in before we violated some important levels of structure there on our left hand side. We can see that there's a bullish engulfing candlestick in there. So obviously momentum, that was where the momentum shift happened. The bias came in from this support structure over there. So obviously if price comes back into this area, and whoever was a market participant that saw value, that was looking at this area, is still still looking at the market again, and maybe the circumstances are the same, we might see them making the same decision, protecting their buyer and continuing maybe to buy. So obviously this is our point of interest where we're going to be looking to add size for a bullish bias setup. Otherwise, looking at the structure, the reason why we were sell biased was obviously because we were at some resistance areas there, higher time frame. We saw some momentum pushing there, and then obviously we saw this nice corrective structure over here, and that's kind of why we were looking for the sell. Like I told you guys, I was premature. I took the sell the day before. I took the sell here, and I got just caught up in a whole day of chop, so my trade literally went nowhere. And then on Friday, I just wasn't really looking at Aussie CAD. I was looking more at Swiss Yen, but we'll get to some Swiss Yen. But otherwise, let's just never mind all of this. Someone on Instagram asked me if I can go through some of the trades that we took, that I took on my own over the space of this week. So maybe if we see some of the nice ones, Aussie CAD did give me a nice trade, but not the cream of the crop for the week. So we'll talk about the cream of the crops. That otherwise, and we'll also talk about the really bad trades, like the trades that are like absolute. We'll talk about the nicest trades and the worst trades, so that we have like a nice contrast to see like what are the different things that pop up during the week, and like how do we handle them, what happened. But otherwise, looking at the overall structure, guys, so this is basically the area where we're going to be paying attention to how does price get here, and then obviously depending on how price gets here, if we get here correctively, we look for our risk entries. If we get here impulsively, then we wait for price action to give us that nice reversal structure before we look for our upside continuation. What we have right now, this is for a bullish bias setup, guys. We're looking at the setup that might present itself for a bullish bias setup. We've also got this support structure over here. So obviously, if we don't find a reversal structure down low, and we do end up seeing prices maybe violating nice and impulsively, what did I just do? If we do see price action maybe violating our support trend line, obviously nice and impulsively, and then coming back for a nice corrective retest, then we will resume our bullish bias and look for trades back above the support structure over there. So that's for our bullish bias setup, guys. On our bearish bias setup, unfortunately, this is going to be on a smaller time frame, but I will go down on the 1 hour. I normally don't go down on the 1 hour on the weekend because it's not necessary, and it'll cause me to look at unnecessary things. Like I don't want to focus on smaller time frame structure. I want to focus on higher time frame structure. But I'm just going over this because this is what I might look at over the course of next week on Monday or whenever. So obviously, you guys do see we've got some momentum to the downside. We've entered a corrective structure. We see more momentum to the downside. What I can be expecting is that price might even want to come and retest this previous support. Obviously, most recent support structure that we violated nice and impulsively, we can always come back to correctively retest that previous support structure. So for a nice bearish bias, maybe just until if we don't tap into this zone yet, and maybe price action starts to correct to the upside, I might be looking at this area here just for some continuation. If I can put a 1:3 in between this entry area here and this target area down here, then definitely I'm going to be looking to take just a short-term sell on Aussie CAD, guys. So that's kind of what I've got for short-term. But anyway, let's not have that on our charts. Let's have what's going to be important to us from a higher time frame perspective. So we focus mainly on higher time frame structure because higher time frame structure has better probabilities for us in the long term, in the long run. And if you want to be someone that's going to be trading after in the next 5 years or whenever, then you've got to be thinking for tomorrow. So obviously, we're waiting to see how does price get to the support structure. This is our point of interest where we'll be looking for upside continuation. Cool. That's our nice bias, bullish bias on Aussie CAD. We can change this now from bearish to finally bullish on a higher time frame. We want our eyes to be focused on up. So let's go on to some Aussie Swiss Franc, Aussie Swiss Franc, Aussie Swiss Franc. We'll start off on the daily. I'll also just keep checking here if there's any questions there in the chat. I don't see anything there in the chat. Cool. Let's just do this. So guys, on Aussie Swiss Franc, Aussie Swiss Franc is a little bit not nice, but we'll find an opportunity anyway. We'll find an opportunity. So anyway, looking at the overall structure, looking at the overall structure, so we've got a nice break of resistance. I don't like how prices have broken this resistance, but higher time frame, we've got some momentum pushing to the upside. And then we've got this resistance area over here. We've got this resistance area over here, this resistance trend line. So obviously, I don't like how prices violated this resistance trend line. Wasn't really convincing enough. And so because of how prices still did violate this resistance trend line, considering where we are coming towards, guys, we are coming towards resistance areas up there. So obviously, you guys know that we can find some sellers maybe wanting to jump in at resistance. So we might see price action maybe giving us some corrective nature to the upside. So what I want to do is I want to be looking at some bearish bias setups. If I want to buy, then Aussie CAD is there for a nice bullish bias setup, but I want to allow myself to look for trades on opposite end of the spectrum, considering AUD, like all these AUD based pairs. I want to kind of maybe trade in, be able to allow myself to look for trades in both directions. So on Aussie Swiss franc, I'm going to be primarily bearish just because of the fact, okay, we'll notice this extra price action when we drop down to the 4 hour, but higher time frame, considering that we're approaching some resistance areas and there's better risk reward ratio in terms of higher time frame management for me to the downside than to the upside. Now, when we come to this most recent price action here, we can see that Aussie Swiss franc is kind of stuck within some sort of a range. So if we just cut out all of this nonsense that's been going there, because yes, we can isolate some structures, but they won't be relevant to us in this most recent price action. What's going to be most relevant is us paying attention to, we have extreme highs, we've got extreme lows, and ever since we've created extreme highs and extreme lows, we've only ever seen price creating structure within those extreme highs and extreme lows. So what I want to do for myself is I want to highlight my extreme highs, I want to highlight my extreme lows, and then use that for reference, obviously, and trade, use this kind of a structure to also help me make decisions based off my higher time frame bias, which is bearish. Now, when I'm coming to Aussie Swiss franc now on a 4 hour, we can see that we're coming towards resistance. And we know that as long as we're stuck in a range, our focus will always be the same. We look for selling probabilities from the high of the range. We look for buying probabilities from the low of the range. So considering how price action is playing out right now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be waiting for price action to come towards or come closer to these highs. Once we get to these highs, I'm going to be paying attention to how do we violate these highs. If we do violate these highs, do we create any structure at this level of structure? Because remember, we always pay attention to how does price get to a level of structure and what does price do at that level of structure that it just approached or just got to. So obviously what price does at this level of structure will also give me indication of whether I can involve myself in this opportunity. If I see a setup that aligns with my directional bias, which is bearish, if I see a bearish bias setup at my resistance, at or around my point of interest, then I will be involving myself in the trading opportunity to the downside. But if we don't see any setup or any price action that gives us any sell buy trading opportunities, if we don't see an ascending structure, if we don't see a head and shoulders, if we don't see a double top, then there's no way that we're going to be involving ourselves in a trade, because price action is not giving us this structure. By us looking for a structure like this structure is us saying, I want to guarantee myself that I'm always trading an environment that I understand. Now, I know that if I trade these structures in specific areas, that's an environment that I've built an edge around. So if I don't see a structure like this, the absence of this structure is already telling me that the environment is not an environment that my edge can function profitably in. So what I need to be doing is obviously waiting for my entry criteria. Aside from creating a directional bias, finding a point of interest, I also during the week while I'm looking for entries need to be waiting for entry criteria to involve myself in that trade with the directional bias that I've concluded on and at that area that I've concluded I want to trade in. So obviously what we're going to be doing is focusing on any bearish bias structure as we come towards this resistance area, considering that we've got extreme highs and extreme lows and we're coming towards these extreme highs. We've also got higher time frame resistance that maybe price action will violate these highs, come and maybe respect this higher time frame resistance up there. Who knows? But we focused on the structure that price will create at this resistance area. So we bearish bias on Aussie Swiss franc over the course of next week. Let's go on to some AJ, see what AJ has for us there. We go up to the daily. Awesome. Okay. So looking at AUDJPY on a daily, so what we had in our previous bias was, because I think it's important that we speak about our previous bias first, so that we can understand the reasonings of those previous biases and see that maybe us holding the same bias as next week might still function, because price action is still kind of in a way almost respecting what we observed last week. So basically last week we had some sort of let's talk about daily structure. Last week we had some highs, sort of equal highs over there in this area that obviously maybe we expected prices might come and violate, which we violated even the week before already. That's kind of why we were focused primarily on our sell bias trading opportunities. But we had 2 points of interest on a higher time frame that our eyes were focused on for bearish bias price action. First point of interest was this area up there, which obviously, I don't know if it was, when was it that we took a sell on AJ? Okay, it's not clear in my head right now. I don't remember when we took a sell on AJ, but otherwise that was our first point of interest up there. But if we look at the second point of interest that we're looking at, which is at this higher time frame resistance area up there. So obviously resistance area where price, we saw this momentum pushing to the downside. We concluded that it was momentum. Remember that we do these calculations whenever we see necessary, like whenever maybe price action is looking too confusing and we want to function off the most recent time frame, and we want to function off the most recent time frame momentum. If we don't want to overthink and make guesses and allow a lot of discretion, we use the ruler and we measure how long did price take to come from this area to this area. Remember that we're always looking at price. We're always looking at the price. Remember that there's price here. So from 86,109, how long did price take to get from that price region to go down like 86 to 78? I don't know how many pips this is, but this is like 1,000 pips or whatever. How long did price take to move 1,000 pips or however many? 7,000 pips. How long did price take to move that low? It took 31 days. Cool, 100%. 31 days to move down 7,000 pips. How long did price take to move back up from the same price area to where price action is now? It took 31 days, remember, to move down. How long did price take to go up? It took 98 days to move back up. So obviously we see that there's more aggressive selling going on than there is buying, because prices are taking a lot longer to move up than they are to move down. So what we're going to do is we're going to still be involving ourselves or looking for trading opportunities in the direction of the most recent momentum that we're seeing, because obviously we've already spoken about it 10 million times that on a higher time frame, AUDJPY is pretty much moving sideways. That's why you guys know we haven't been liking the JPY code pairs as most recently, because they've all been stuck in this higher time frame sideways moving market. If we can see where we are within this higher time frame sideways moving market, there's higher time frame resistance. Yes, we violated it just a little bit to the upside, whatever the case is, but look at where we are. If we consider this to be a range, because we do have extreme highs, extreme lows, we've got equal highs at there, we've got a sort of, okay, maybe not equal lows, but sort of almost equal lows. We can see that ever since we created extreme highs and extreme lows, prices have been creating structure within the extreme highs and extreme lows. Once we identify a range, the safest thing we do for ourselves in the range is look for selling probabilities from the high of the range and buying probabilities from the low of the range. Where are we within this range? We are at the high of the range. So what does it make more sense for us to do, maybe from a higher time frame perspective? Align ourselves on the sell side of things. So from a daily, we're going to conclude that we're going into the week over the course of next week with a primarily sell biased bearish. And then obviously now let's drop down onto the 4 hour and we just observe a little bit about the nature on the price, nature of the price action. And then obviously we isolate our points of interest to figure out where can we find this sell bias trading opportunity that we're so hunting for. So looking at the 4 hour, just coming to the most recent price action over here. I just want to, cool. We're just going to focus on the most recent price action, guys. Just the most recent price action. So most recent price action, obviously we can see that we're in a clear as day uptrend. We've got some support there. We've got some highs. We've got a higher low. We've got a new higher high. We've got a new higher low, and we've got a new higher high. We're in an uptrend. What we want to do, since we've concluded being in an uptrend, is we want to see what kind of a trend are we in. So what do we use? We use our trend line to get an idea of what does the trend look like. So obviously support trend line would give us an idea of what our support trend line would look like. Okay, cool. I thought I could drag that. Okay, that's how I would do that. And then obviously we just take into account our extreme resistance areas over there to get an idea of what resistance do we have. Maybe we want to use this resistance here, just looking at the higher time frame structure. Because I do see that this resistance is a lot higher. If we can, let's be realistic. Let me draw it out for you guys, just so that you guys see. I'm not pulling things from underneath my shoes. So we've got some support. Let's look at extreme levels of structure. Ever since we created the support, where's the next high that we created? We created this high over here, 100%. Ever since we created that high, where's the next low? We've created this low over here. Where's the next high to have been created after we violated this resistance area? It's this high up here. So what I'd like to do maybe for my resistance trend line is, instead of looking at this as an extreme high, let me just rather take this as my extreme high, because this aligns better with higher time frame structure, I guess. Oh, wow. And it kind of makes me feel a little bit better because I can see that prices rejected from there, prices rejected from there, and prices rejected from there. So it feels a little bit better to have it like that, to get an idea of what kind of a structure we've got going on there, and also be using the right structure. We want to use the right structure. Cool. So obviously now, since we know that we're in ascending structure, we know that we're bearish. We've got some most recent resistance areas over here. Simple enough. Once we've got most recent resistance areas and we're at that touch or whatever the case is, on a smaller time frame or on Monday, Tuesday, whenever during the week, all we're looking for is reversal structures above our resistance trend line. If we fail to find a resistance, a reversal structure that forms above this trend line, all we do, this horizontal ray, all we do is we wait for price action to violate the structure to the downside. Once we are below this resistance trend line, we are looking for the continuation of whatever momentum sent prices back below this level of structure over here. Obviously, the further we move away from this level of structure before we come back and retest, the more valid and the more risk we're going to add, or the better the probabilities of us finding a nicer trade at the retest. But otherwise, guys, this is the setup that we're going to be looking at. As long as we're above from here, we're looking for those reversal structures, whether it's us finding a nice third touch or whatever the case is, whatever structure we find up there. If we don't find that structure, we look for that nice break and for that nice retest of whatever most recent price action we've got. So some bearish bias price action. All I'm saying is that we know that we can find a risk entry up top. We know that we can find a reduced risk entry below, and we're going to be looking at those two entries. We know that for a risk entry, we need to find a reversal structure. For a reduced risk entry, we need to be taking obviously continuations to the downside. So we know our directional bias is bearish. We've got our point of interest areas where we want to trade, and we know that all we're going to be doing over the case of Monday, Tuesday, whenever, is looking for our entry criteria at these points of interest. Nice and simple process, guys. The more we complicate our process, the harder it is for us to replicate over and over and over. And plus, we don't want to give ourselves too much information and say exactly this and this and this and this and this and this, and then Monday we don't even remember what we did on the weekend. We just need two things: directional bias and a point of interest where I'm going to find that direction, that trade in that direction. And that's all I go into the next week with. Even in the day, all I go into the new day with on Monday morning when I'm doing my analysis, preparing for the trading day, I'm going into the day with two things. I've got this directional bias. Where can I find trading opportunities to get trades in that directional bias? And the rest, only other things that I'm doing is that I'm waiting for price to get to where I want to trade. When price is where I want to trade, I'm looking for my chart patterns. Once I find the chart pattern in that area, that chart pattern will confirm that the environment is right. Then, Tramayne, look for your candlestick confirmation. That's how simple my process is, guys. Anyway, let's get into some AU. Let's see. I see something in the chat there before we get to AU. I see Tirelo saying, I took this trade as soon as I got a third touch. Nice. You're in on the momentum. Nice. Yeah, I would go and look to see what was the entry confirmation there. See, very nice process. Very nice process there, Kopano. It's simple, man. The simpler the process, the easier it's going to be for me to replicate. That's why I try and not add too much to my process. Like I'm always, from day one, I started looking at chart patterns. And obviously, I got experiential knowledge using chart patterns. As much as maybe someone will tell me, oh, Tramayne, you're using smart money concepts and whatever the case is, my language is not smart money concepts. I'm still looking at resistance. I'm still looking at points of interest, because that's what all of that stuff means. Like, no matter how deep it is, whether it's smart money, whether it's whatever, anything always is developed from the basics. The basics had to be there first. For anything else, no matter how complex it's going to be, for any of that stuff to exist, the basics had to be there. So my focus is just doing the basics and executing the basics, perfecting the most basic of things. That's what I want to perfect the basics. And no matter how complex your thing will get in the future, or whatever you choose to add, you'll have such a deep understanding or deep level of understanding that it's not going to confuse you, or your process won't be too complicated. Like, as much as I'm using smart money, to me, smart money is just support and resistance and my chart patterns. Instead of me going in so deep into smart money and including Wyckoff and including this and including all of those labels and complicating my process, looking for automatic rally, whatever, spring, all those hundreds of different names. I know that those names are present in the chart patterns that I'm looking at. So why not just focus on something that's just so simple and cut all that language and English and complexity out of my process? So anyway, on AU, what we've got here is just most recent price action. Let's just open up, expand our thing there. Just looking at the most recent price action, we've got these lower structures over here. We see some momentum violating to the downside. After we've seen this momentum violating to the downside, we had prices creating extreme lows and extreme highs. We had some equal lows there. We were looking for a nice bearish reaction from somewhere here, isolating some sort of a corrective structure over there, but prices obviously chose to do opposite. We saw prices violating this resistance area, obviously coming up to one of these areas. We'll see this area a little bit more clearly on a 4 hour. I'll show you guys why I've highlighted this area there on a 4 hour. But otherwise, after we've seen prices basically tapping into this area, what do we take note about how prices are treating this resistance area? We've got resistance up there. Oh crap, wrong thing, wrong tool. Here's the right tool here. We've got this resistance area. Prices violated, we broke and closed above, we broke and closed back below, we broke and closed back above. So obviously corrective nature around this resistance area, showing us that price is creating some sort of a corrective structure. So we understand that there are only two types of corrective structures. It's either going to be a continuation to the upside or it's going to be a reversal. But looking at which direction most recent momentum was coming in, fact that we were in some sort of a consolidation. If we drop down onto the 4 hour, we'll observe a little bit about the nature of why we were looking for bearish bias price action, because we saw, even on a 4 hour, we saw some momentum coming to the downside, and we saw this nice corrective structure over here. So who wouldn't trade this nice corrective structure? Price even gave us this nice corrective structure at resistance. Yeah, it was literally, it was seriously pumping sellers in, but obviously we didn't trade, guys. I didn't find any entry confirmation on AU. I didn't find any entry confirmation in AU. AU just wasn't clear enough. That's why we were choosing to sell. I think we sold Aussie Franc over the course of last week, and I think we also sold AJ. AUDCAD, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before that. I just don't remember. I just don't remember whether it was the week before that or last week. But yeah, we chose to sell the other pairs and not AUDUSD. The reason why we chose not to sell AUDUSD is because we noticed something with the dollar and AUD. What we noticed, we spoke about it last week, that last week we saw dollar going up. We also saw what? We also saw AUDUSD having a nice big bullish week last week, or whenever it was, those couple of weeks. So obviously that meant something was going on with the AUD, or something was going on with the other pairs relative to the dollar, like GU, EU, or whatever the case is. Because what we were expecting to see, obviously, if we were seeing dollar strength, we should see that this pair should be moving to the downside, especially if dollar was as strong as you saw. Guys saw how strong dollar was last week and all those other weeks before. Dollar was very strong. So why are we seeing both the dollar strength and as well as AUD/USD going up? Main reason is because AUD has been so much more stronger than the dollar has been, especially relative to the other pairs. The other pairs like euro, like pound, like whatever, all those other pairs that you can think of have been a lot weaker than the dollar most recent price action. And obviously because AUD has been the only pair amongst the whole basket, that's why hence both of these pairs are moving to the upside. So we obviously saw that there's going to be a lot of maybe chop. We're going to involve ourselves in a lot of unnecessary positions. Hence we did not trade AU over the course of last week and other weeks or whatever the case is. But maybe now we might be looking to trade AU now, because we've got a nice bearish bias on AU, and we've also got a bearish bias finally now on DXY as well. So we've got a bearish directional bias on both of them, but let's see what happens anyway. So let's just see most recent price action. We're obviously observing this ascending structure. We can obviously see resistance areas there, momentum sending prices back below this resistance area, obviously giving us some indication of maybe some corrective price action, because we saw price action was being corrective to the upside. I'm gonna hold a bearish bias. Even if I just look at the most recent price action, if we can just argue a little bit about just most recent price action. If I look at like let's just say this all these candlesticks here, because price came back to this price region around here. If I look at this price region over here, all of these candlesticks, the only place where I basically see momentum was just this last candlestick up here that gave some momentum, that just absolutely pumped these buyers into this market. After we saw market pumping these buyers into the market, like if I look at how, even if you count how many candlesticks do you see momentum in going to the upside versus to the downside, I see some momentum coming into the downside, like quite a lot of momentum coming in on the downside. Just most recent price action. So what I want to do for myself is I want to be focused on maybe just finding the highest sell that I can possibly find on AU. Since there is no nice corrective structure that I can find, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be waiting for a structure to develop. I'm going to be waiting for a corrective structure to develop. If I want to trade, if I want to put my money there, I want to put my money on something that is really honestly going to give me something. Like, I don't want to guess, I don't want to feel, I don't want to think, I don't want to hope, I don't want to do all of that stuff. I want money. And if I really want money, I'm going to have to trade where I see there being a potential for me to make money. If I don't see it and I'm only feeling it and I only want it and if it's just in my head is not going to translate into reality. So I need to see it in my reality if I want to trade it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for some sort of a corrective structure to develop. There's nothing objective that's giving me a real reason to sell this pair, but because of the higher time frame narrative, considering that price action has been fairly corrective, moving to the upside, I want to kind of maybe look for some sell bias trading opportunities. But what I'm going to do is, like I told you, I'm going to look for a high sell, meaning I'm going to give this pair an opportunity to develop. So if price action does make its way back to the upside, maybe even violating this resistance area, at that point in time, I will be looking for an opportunity to sell. So what I'll be doing is maybe we'll find price action might develop some sort of a corrective structure. We don't know. Maybe price action might move to the downside and then give us maybe a new corrective structure once we've violated the support or whatever the case is. We don't know what's going to happen, but because of the directional bias that I've seen, that I've seen from the higher time frame, I'm going to wait to see price action that kind of does develop, that gives me an opportunity to trade a bearish directional bias. If I don't find an opportunity, obviously, as the week goes on, we'll update you guys. Once AU pops up, because like obviously I'm not going to trade AU. It's not going to be on my watch list over the course of the week. But obviously, as it develops and as the opportunities begin to present themselves, then we'll start to add it to the watch list and we'll obviously take maybe whatever else off the watch list. But for now, I'm still going to exercise some patience on AU. If AU does come up higher, then I will be more than happy to start looking to sell AU. Yeah, so I guess I'll also just put their bearish directional bias, but AU, we're going to have to exercise a lot of patience on AU. I don't want to trade where there aren't any probabilities for me to really make money. Let's just give me a second there, guys. Sorry, just give me a second. Just want to double check my phone. Okay, let me just have something to just drink there. Just 1 second, guys. I've been talking for a while. So I'm just checking to see if there's anything in the chat there. While I'm just taking a quick breather, guys. Just a quick breather. I see Pele is saying that you need those shades, man, because you're on fire. Okay. Yeah, hey, the shades are here. The shades are the other side. The shades are the other side. But if I were to wear shades, I would need virtual shades now. I don't like to put those shades on when I'm doing like analysis, like the real shades when I'm doing analysis, because I can't see I can't see it makes me like I'm fighting to see my screen. So I don't want to fight to see the screen. But yeah, the virtual shades for sure. Let me just minimize this. Let's minimize this. It's getting to some Yen. Okay, let's take this off. You don't care what last expires was. Okay, looking at a daily, so take off that. Higher time frame, everything is still pretty much the same as usual. So I don't think I wanna reference my higher time frame structure anymore, because like if we just look at the most recent price action, we'll still get the same information just from the most recent daily. So most recent daily, we see some corrective price action, momentum to the upside. We got resistance there. Price action giving us some support. We see a violation of this previous resistance area. Prices breaking back below this area and then obviously failing to give us some momentum to the upside, violating the setup to the upside. So Yen, guys, Yen has been a copy and paste this week. I don't think I'll ever forget This week is gonna, or like the last 2 weeks, I don't know, the last 2 weeks or just this week alone. Don't remember, not thinking about it now, but I don't think I'll forget Susian for the rest of my life. She gave the same setup every single day on different time frames, the exact, guys. It's like now we only need to be just focusing on one setup for Susian, because she literally gave the same setup. We had this was the setup that she gave every single day. Every single trade we took on Susian was this one setup. Price action looked exactly the same. Momentum to the downside. Okay, we have to create this point of interest. We had a point of interest somewhere in the center, momentum to the downside. We had an impulsive phase. After the impulsive phase, we had a high that did not tap into the point of interest. We had prices creating whatever other nonsense structure below. We weren't worried about what's happening at support. Price gave an equal high. After we found equal highs, what did we do? We highlighted our point of interest. What were we looking for? We were looking for our sell bias trading opportunities at this higher time frame, at this point of interest. Thought I grabbed this thing. We were looking for selling opportunities at the point of interest to the low of whatever structure we've been creating over there. Price action gave us the exact same setup where we created this double top structure just below a point of interest. Price came back to the point of interest and gave us that completion of structure. Every day, the exact same setup, guys. Susian this week, Susian this week, guys. If what we traded last week was a structure that market makers or whoever has volume, if that was a structure that they use to generate money, let's just say to generate money, because we saw some equal highs and we saw a violation of equal highs. If that was a structure that they use regularly, especially maybe on this pair, we just learned it and we traded it every day last week, guys. Yeah, I'm so excited about this structure because I've never, I've always been looking for, okay, I've got a lot of experiential knowledge at Susian. I know what kind of setups I do take on Susian, but this specific setup that we took last week every single day, this was something new. So I'm excited to see like how us learning this setup plays out in the future. Like, can we only maybe use just this one trading setup because it's given us such good trading probabilities and such good setups, and even higher time frame structure. Even the higher time frame structure was just absolutely beautiful, guys. Even the higher time frame structure, even if we use this exact same method, exact same analysis to look at the higher time frame structure, where we had this nice, beautiful momentum to the downside. Let's just isolate that. We had this nice, sexy momentum to the downside, also momentum to the downside. In this momentum, we had our point of interest up here. Last area where we see prices coming in just before the momentum to the downside. We had our high even gave us double tops. We had our prices, obviously we concluded that we're in a range. At this point in time, like when after prices created this second high, which we needed to complete, we remember we said we needed these two highs. Then we concluded, okay, cool, price action was in a range. We even got a sell from here. We observed this ascending structure. We sold to the bottom of the range, but our eyes were still focused on the fact that we had equal highs, a point of interest above. We got that, guys, this setup played out on a 15-minute. We took a 15-minute entry. We took an hourly entry. We took a 4-hourly entry. We took this daily entry. Guys, exact same setup. I think this is amazing. Like, it's so, some people trade and they don't really look at what's going on the chart. Like, if you're not really honestly involved in the price action, you won't recognize these patterns and these structures and these whatevers. Like, if you're just trading and just like, if you don't really do your ASR and look at the setups that you took during the week that worked out, look at the setups that didn't work out, you won't recognize that, oh shit, the whole week I've been taking the exact same thing on different time frames or whatever the case is. But anyway, let's leave all that. So coming into the most recent price action, guys, what I want to do is I just want to take into account now, obviously this point of interest, prices have tapped into that point of interest. So what we're going to do instead is just continue looking at the range the exact same way we were looking at the range before. This being the high of the range, obviously, and we had this being the low of our range. And all we were doing the whole time, ever since we entered this range, we even traded these double top structures over here. Ever since we entered this range, we've been looking for selling probabilities from the high of this range, buying probabilities from the low of this range. That's how we've been the whole time. From when? From January on Susian, that's how we've been trading highs and lows, of the highs and the lows of this exact same range. We're going to continue to do the exact same thing now, most recent price action. all that we are going to do is now we are going to also include for all of the price action that we have, because now we also have these, we can consider this, maybe these two highs here to be the high of our range. Maybe if you want to say our range has expanded, maybe let's just do that for ourselves. Let's not cause ourselves to look at anything prematurely. Let's just do this. We look at this as the new high of our range. Cool, because I want to include all the most recent price action as well. So with us including that high, I also want us to isolate a structure, a corrective structure that gives us some higher time frame trading opportunities. So the higher time frame structure that I want us to look at is obviously taking into account our extreme support, because we already concluded we in some sort of an uptrend. If you just look at the most recent price action from the lows, what do I see? I see a low, I see a high, I see a higher low, and I see a higher high. Nice and awesome uptrend. So I've got a nice uptrend, obviously, but we add the trend line to see how aggressive is this uptrend that we have. And obviously it's not an aggressive uptrend because this trend line is not steep. It's a gentle trend. So obviously we've got our support trend line there. We also need to isolate maybe a resistance trend line, taking into account maybe just this most recent structure. And what we can see is that yes, price action can come up and even violate this resistance area for that nice touch there. So what we're doing by what we're doing for ourselves by doing this is that we don't want to enter prematurely. We don't want to jump in maybe when we're not supposed to. Allowing price action to maybe, because obviously when we look at this trade, we're going to be looking at, the next time I'm going to look at this pair after the market has opened is Monday morning at 9 o'clock. And obviously by 9 o'clock, price action will have developed. And I guess I was also mentioning this just to someone that I was having a one-on-one session, that like when we're doing analysis, the point of us analyzing is not so we can find a trading opportunity right now. Like price is here, what can I do right now? That's not why we're doing analysis. We do analysis to find trading opportunities. If that means that we allow patience and wait for price action to maybe even come up and give us the touch or whatever the case is, then that's what we're doing, because this is an area where I'm telling myself that Tramayne, that $2 that you have that you want to risk, that you don't want to lose, if you seriously don't want to lose that $2, trade that $2 in this area here. Because if you trade here, there aren't much probabilities for you to find and actually trade the $2 and make something from the $2 that you want to risk, or however much it is that you want to risk. I want to trade where I'm going to make money or where I see potential to make money. I'm not going to trade anywhere. So looking at the structure, obviously we can see that now prices do have the potential to come up and give us this nice that touch of structure. Also maybe to come up to this resist or come up closer to this resistance area. So maybe just to give price some breathing room, let's wait and see what structure looks like on Monday. But obviously right now we're going to be sell biased on Swiss yen, looking for price action to come. This is now functioning as our point of interest, the area of value, or place where we want to find our sell biased trading opportunities. So as of now, that's the structure that we've got here, looking for reversals. If we violate this resistance area, this resistance up here, obviously we look for reversals above that resistance. If we don't find reversals above, we wait for momentum to push prices back below the resistance, and we wait for our continuation structures to get involved in the short bias, in the short opportunity. So we sell biased on Swiss yen. That's the setup that we're looking at right now. We're still seeing this as a range. We're looking for selling probabilities at the high of the overall range. We're still trading the most recent momentum that has been to the downside, and then after we enter a corrective structure. Cool. Let's go on to some New Zealand dollar CAD. Let me see, nothing in the chat there. Awesome, nothing in the chat. Cool. So New Zealand dollar CAD. Looking at the high time frame structure, I think for New Zealand dollar CAD, okay, the structure looks almost exactly the same as AUDCAD. So let's just analyze it for what it is. Let's not try and include our own hedging strategies or whatever, because I just caught my mind trying to do that now. Anyway, most recent structure, or the structure that we were looking at, we've been making decisions of this structure for a while on New Zealand dollar CAD. Some structure, okay, we'll just use the most recent touches because that just makes it look very awkward for us. We've got this two most recent highs, and then obviously we had some support over there. We saw a violation of support, prices broke below out of the descending structure. We broke back into the descending structure, came back for a nice retest of this previous support structure that we've broken below and broken back above. We came back, retested it, gave some nice momentum to the upside. So we're seeing this momentum And as well as from a daily, I can also agree that prices have given us a higher high. We've got this previous high there that obviously we did break above. Yes, it's not a significant change of like structure. We didn't like a nice last impulsively break, close above, and then come back or whatever. Yes, but it is a higher high nonetheless. But what we're looking at is the fact that prices gave us a new higher high. We've been seeing the nature of this structure. Nature of the structure has been lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. And finally, what we've just most recently done is we've violated a resistance area on a daily, on a higher time frame. So obviously gives us an indication that maybe the trend that has been happening here in New Zealand dollar yen, this nice downtrend, daily downtrend, maybe it's exhausted itself and we're done. And so obviously after we see violation of resistance areas, what we're expecting from price action is now no longer a low that goes down below this low. Otherwise, it's another different complex structure that we could never ever anticipate unless we waited and saw it happening, whatever the case is, or found different other additional reasons on why we should be looking for downside continuation. Right now, what we can see with the information that we have on the chart, what makes most sense is after we've seen a higher high, we should be expecting that prices should be creating a higher low before maybe continuing a bullish trend. We shouldn't be seeing prices coming down to violate these lower structures because obviously now we're getting characteristics of a bullish bias trend. So let's just get into what we could be doing here on New Zealand dollar CAD. So since we've seen some nice momentum to the upside, obviously we want to be bullish bias. We've considered that from a higher time frame perspective. Now coming down, obviously now to the most recent price action over here, what we do see is obviously most recent resistance. Let me just delete this stuff here because it's not relevant to me. Cool. Most recent price action, we obviously see price action or for at least our 4-hour structure, for a major 4-hour structure that we have here. We've got our lows there, we've got highs, we've got higher lows, we've got new higher highs, we've got new higher lows, we've got new higher highs. So price action would basically still be bullish as long as we're remaining above these 4-hour higher structures over there. So we know that for our lowest opportunity to buy, all we need to do is just look for where did the momentum come into this market. Momentum came in right over here. Crap. Wrong tool. Momentum came in right over here, which kind of also does align with this previous support, this previous area. The prices have broken below. We've broken back above. Maybe if we looked at this on a weekly or a higher time frame, like a very higher time frame, we might even see that prices didn't even react in this area. Like you guys can see that there's no even candlestick. So maybe a weekly itself can come back to retest this area here as an area of value, as previous support that we've broken below, broken back above, not retested yet, and could come back and retest. Remember that things are happening on every time frame. Every time frame. So anyway, this is obviously an area where we could be looking for our lowest buy. Nice point of interest there. Nice area where we see buyers coming in, momentum coming in. This is the area where the momentum came in that violated these structures over there, and as well as this structure over here. Just anywhere where I can say I did see the buyers come in. I see a bullish engulfing over there at that support. That's momentum shift. Buyers came in from there. So coming back now to the most recent structure, obviously you guys know that we can also trade a nice break and a retest of this resistance area up here. But obviously, since prices are coming impulsively, we need to wait for a reversal structure. So what I'll be doing for myself on New Zealand dollar CAD is not really looking at focusing on this area per se, but what I'll be doing for myself is I will be waiting to see if price action maybe wants to create a larger corrective structure. Who knows? Price action could do something like that. That ends up giving us a nice trading opportunity at this point of interest here for a nice higher time frame buying opportunity. So what I'll be doing is obviously I'll be reactive. I know where I want to buy New Zealand dollar CAD, so I'm not just going to be looking to buy anywhere. This is the point of interest where I want to buy it. But in terms of selling opportunities, I think I'll also kind of maybe be willing to take a few sells if obviously we get some price action that allows me to do such a thing. But as for now, extremely bullish bias. Maybe we should even get our sell bias trading opportunities out of our head. Let's just focus on bullish bias momentum, because there's a hell of a lot of momentum pushing to the upside, and we really more than anything want to trade in direction of the momentum. So it makes a lot more sense for us to be bullish bias, especially if we find structures maybe coming down to previous support. We find out that prices are correcting around previous support. That's a nice structure that can give us an opportunity to buy. Will we find the momentum that continues to violate structure, higher time frame, whatever? No, we don't know, or let's rather say. But what we're going to do is wait for price action to give us some entry criteria at a nice point of interest where we can find good probabilities to buy. So yeah, New Zealand dollar CAD, I'm going to be looking for buying opportunities. This is the point of interest that I really want to add size in, the area that I'll really be looking for my lowest opportunity to buy. So if all else fails, we just exercise patience and wait for price action to come down to here before we look for those buys. Let's go on to New Zealand dollar yen. New Zealand dollar yen. Cool. So New Zealand dollar yen, what we can conclude is that price action has now finally tapped into the point of interest. When was it? I think, I don't know if it was last week. Was it last week? No, it was Monday. Let's see. Wait a second. Yeah, it was Monday. It was Monday. Monday. Well, on a smaller time frame, we'll observe that there's another point of interest on here on a smaller time frame. Okay, obviously, if you're looking at it from a daily, this whole candlestick here is the point of interest, and yes, prices did tap into Monday did tap into this point of interest, but on a smaller time frame, you see that there's another point of interest a lot higher. But otherwise, what we were waiting for is basically we had some resistance. On a smaller time frame, we were looking for, or we observed some corrective price action coming towards this resistance area. And then obviously that's why, because we were coming towards resistance, we were bearish bias because it made more sense for us to be looking to sell. But we had some points of interest where we were looking for some sell bias trading opportunities. I didn't send a signal on New Zealand dollar yen, but I know I personally did take a trade on New Zealand dollar yen, and it did stop me out. So I only took one position on New Zealand dollar yen. And once it stopped me out, I didn't look for another trading opportunity. I was just waiting for prices to get to my higher sell area. But otherwise, on New Zealand dollar yen, I would say that we did kind of get some of what we were looking for, but not entirely, because there was still a higher time frame point of interest that prices could have went to go and tap into. But otherwise, now that we're on the 4-hour, let's just pay attention to let me just do this. Just want to delete the structures over here. And then I just want to highlight this resistance area over there. And then let's just go and isolate that resistance, that point of interest that I was telling you guys about. Obviously, if we just look at this area here that reacted on that daily time frame, and we ask ourselves, where do we see a bunch of sellers coming into the market? Oh, check this nice, sexy bearish engulfing in this area over here. So that's kind of that point of interest that I was looking for prices to come into. This is like the highest sell, because obviously I can see this is where momentum came in. Yes, price and momentum did come in somewhere over here, but this was that first resistance area that we were looking at, which obviously we ended up now disregarding now in the future. So obviously we want to be focusing on that higher sell, or whatever the case is up there. That's our point of interest, where we do see momentum coming and tapping into. So coming down to the most recent price action here on a 4-hour, just to isolate the structure that we do have here, since we want to be sell bias, we're coming towards resistance, all that nice good stuff. Just looking at here, we obviously isolate our support trend line there to get, obviously it's an uptrend. So we start with the support. We know that we wanna get an idea of, oh, we want to use resistance first because we want to sell, because it's more important to us in terms of the bias. But we always start by identifying the current trend that we have. So if we're in an uptrend, we start with our support trend line. If we're in a downtrend, we start by isolating our resistance trend line. Okay, I can't even find a nice downtrend here. If we're in a downtrend for whatever reason, we start by a resistance trend line. Cool. Anyway, most recent price action, we can obviously see that there's a nice ascending structure here. Our ascending structure does have some nice, or at least we've got a nice first touch here, second touch in this area, and you guys can see that we haven't gotten a third touch, and our third touch region can align or can give us a trading opportunity somewhere in and around this area here, which also aligns with that higher, with that 4-hour, I almost said higher time frame. It's not a high, it's a 4-hour point of interest. It will be a higher time frame, obviously, during the week when we're on the smaller time frames, but for now, 4-hour point of interest over there. If we do see price action, obviously giving us some nature that allows us to look for a sell, and this is the area where we're going to look to add size for that sell. If we do see price action correcting to that area, then obviously we're going to be looking for our sell bias trading opportunities from there. Maybe just looking to target the 90% roll of the structure. Let's see if we can, if that's too ambitious. Okay, maybe it's not so ambitious, because remember the reason why we were sell biased was because of how price action violated our resistance trend line. To begin with, we were obviously maybe wanting to be bullish bias, but we saw that price action first of all, correctively broke our structure, gave us momentum to the downside, and all of this stuff is prices been moving very slowly to the upside. So that's kind of what were the initial reasons why over last week we're looking for more sell bias trading opportunities, just because of how we see. We always pay attention to what is price action doing and how is it doing whatever it's doing. So because of how price action was moving to the upside, we were sell biased because we were coming towards the resistance areas and all that good stuff. So obviously the price action or the nature of how price has been moving up is still kind of fairly corrective, still moving quite slow. So I still want to align myself on the south side of things. So now at least I know where I'm going to do that at this point of interest, obviously at my 4-hour resistance trend line, which is also a point of interest, because remember, any structures that we draw on a 4-hour primarily function for us identifying and isolating areas where we'll find our trading opportunities. So just points of interest, areas of value, whatever you want to call it, resistance areas, whatever areas where I want to trade. Cool. So we sell bias on New Zealand dollar yen. Today's like another week where we're looking to sell most of my pairs. What's going on? Otherwise, let's get into some US30. So US30, we will start off on the 4-hour. On the four. So on the 4-hour, just looking at the most recent price action. Let's just make sure we've got all our 4-hour structure in there. There we go. This is our 4-hour structure. So 4-hour structure, just looking at the most recent price action here, taking into account our most recent or extreme resistance areas over there. Taking into account maybe our extreme support structures from over here. We've got some weird looking descending structure, or what did we add this to? Which structure, which support did we have? I think we had that support. Cool. Nonetheless, we've got some price action that's obviously descending. Why are we isolating a corrective structure? Because that's how we make sense of what's happening on the chart. What we do is we look for nature of how price action is violating support. We see prices breaking below, breaking back above, which gives us indication of corrective price action. We see prices breaking support, breaking below, breaking back above, which gives us more indication of corrective price action. So that's why we're isolating a corrective structure. So considering that high time frame, maybe we've got some young corrective structure over there. What we need to do is just obviously pay attention to where price action is within the structure where we're going towards. We know that in the descending structure, we want to primarily be bullish. We've also got some extreme support structures down over there. So obviously we got some nice areas. We've got a nice directional bias, which is that we want to be maybe bullish, and we know where we can find those bullish trading opportunities. Now, if we come down to a 1 hour, we can obviously see that maybe we can say prices maybe are inside some sort of a range, maybe. Reason being, I would say, is just let's just look at our important levels of structure here on a 4 hour, a 1 hour. So just looking at this most recent price action, what I do see, prices coming in from the top, giving us all of this, but anyway, resistance. We have new support down there. We see price action coming up. We got resistance, cool. Resistance, cool. We've got prices coming down, some support, okay, higher lows, but almost there in and around that region. And then obviously, ever since we've created these resistance areas and this support structure over there, we've been seeing price action creating structure inside of that support and that extreme support and the extreme resistance. So obviously, we know what being stuck within a sideways moving market calls us to do. Look for buying probabilities from the low of the range, and then obviously our selling probabilities from the high of the range. Now, considering that maybe price action is moving to the downside now, all the better for us, because we've got these nice almost equal lows there, that maybe if price action comes nice and impulsively and violates that structure, we might find, obviously we look for our reversal structures below this support structure over there. Once we find that reversal structure, we look for our continuation to the upside. And then obviously, if we don't manage to find a reversal, but we do get momentum that breaks back above our structure, then we're looking for that bullish continuation from our structures. There we go, upside continuation. So what I'd like to be, obviously, I do see some high time frame probabilities playing out somewhere in and around this area here. So I know that's where maybe I want to be taking most of my trades. Maybe that's where I want to be adding size or whatever the case is. But now, obviously, on a smaller time frame, we do see that there might be potential for price action to continue and make that move to the downside, does that mean I'm going to be looking to sell in accordance with obviously this most recent price action? Maybe. Just depends on how the setup presents itself. Obviously, I see momentum to the downside. I have some resistance areas up here. I can always wait for price action to give me a reason to sell, a higher time frame reason to sell. If maybe we find this head and shoulder structure playing out, left shoulder, we've got prices coming back to the neckline. If we see a corrective structure coming towards maybe our resistance trend line, that's a nice reason for me to sell. If I can fit a 1:3 in between here and where I'm looking to take my profits, then that's cool. All in well. But otherwise, what I won't be maybe focusing on adding size going down, but I'm also maybe want to add size going up, just considering the higher time frame structure. We are in a descending structure. Descending structures normally break to the upside, or at least the probabilities in a descending structure are more to the upside than they are to the downside, because to the downside, what's happening in a descending structure? Price is correcting to the downside. So if I'm trading down in a descending structure, I'm probably maybe going to be involved in a lot more chop than I will be in momentum, or at least maybe not in the beginning, but at least towards the end of that descending structure, there's going to be more momentum going up than there is going to be going down. Because obviously now the psychology behind the descending structure, okay, I literally have it there. Okay, cool. Psychology behind the descending structure is just that people are being taken out on one side of the market and orders are being stacked in on the bullish side of things. Yeah, I just figured that it's going to be a little bit lengthy if we go into the explanation, and it's like 12 o'clock already. So guys, let's see if you guys maybe don't have any 1 or 2 questions there before we call it a session. If there are no questions, we'll call it a session because we've gone through all of the pairs. You guys know DXY, we're looking for sell price trading opportunities. AUDCAD, we're bullish. AUD Swiss franc, we're bearish. AUDJPY, we're bearish. AUDUSD, we're bearish, but we're not looking to trade it right now. We're still going to exercise some patience. Swiss yen, we're bearish. We're waiting for that nice third touch. We're still inside of the range, selling from the high, buying from the low. Zealand CAD, we're bullish. We've got that most recent momentum we're looking to buy from. Obviously, we want to get that low buy. And then obviously New Zealand CAD, we're bearish. US30, we want to be bullish primarily. So let's see, maybe if you guys don't have any questions, then we're safe. I don't really look at NASDAQ 100, but obviously maybe you can just use some correlation, observe for descending price action on your NASDAQ, and then obviously look to where you can find points of interest for bullish price trading opportunities, because they are positively correlated to some degree. So the price action won't look all that different. Yeah, so I guess just use the correlation between the two there. Mega, I see Mac. Thanks, man. All good there, Mac. Thanks so much, guys, for being part of the session. Let there be peace in the streets. Let our brothers and sisters be safe. I see Kuma saying, so why do we use the dollar index? We use the dollar index to see what's happening across the dollar, because remember that the dollar index is just showing us what's happening in terms of the dollar relative to the euro, the pound, the yen, the Australian dollar, the CAD, and the Swiss franc. So what's happening on DXY is mainly built up by, like, for example, if the euro is much stronger than the dollar, then you find out that DXY is probably moving down because the dollar is relatively weaker than the euro. And obviously, if that's happening across a lot of these other pairs, like if the dollar is relatively weaker against a lot of these other major pairs or relatively stronger, then the DXY shows us what that relative strength across all 6 of these pairs is. Obviously, these 6 pairs have different degrees of correlation to the DXY. Like Euro USD has the highest correlation to the DXY, followed by maybe GBP USD, followed by maybe AUD USD, followed by maybe a USD CAD. Obviously, it's inversely correlated that to a degree, inversely CAD, and then inversely CAD, USD CAD, and then obviously USD CHF and USDJPY. They all are USD CAD, USD CHF, and USDJPY are inversely correlated to, positively correlated to the DXY. Euro USD, GBP USD, and AUD USD are inversely correlated to the DXY, which means when DXY is going down, those pairs are moving up. Though on the other hand, the USD CAD, USD JPY, USD CHF, when DXY is going down, those pairs are probably also most likely going down. So they're positively correlated to the dollar index. So yeah, we just look at that just to get an idea of what kind of risk we should be taking on the pairs that we trade. Only pair that I trade that has a dollar is AUD USD. So I mainly look at the DXY mainly for you guys, mainly for you guys, because yeah, I don't trade AU much. Like AU, I can exercise a lot of patience. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thanks so much there, guys. I see Vule saying thank you, have a safe weekend. Thanks so much there, guys. Have a good weekend as well. Enjoy the rest of your guys' weekend. Make sure you guys are prepared for the next week. Yeah, let there be peace in the streets, guys. Let our brothers and sisters be safe.
Thank you, Tramayne.
Awe tirelo.
Thanks guys for the session. Nice to see you guys there. The only people that I see there in the chats, I see Gorge there, I see Mveliso. Same range like USDCAD that I managed to capitalize on last week. Hashtag bull. I see Zin. Hi T, please check my DM on IG from Zinzi. Okay, sure thing. From Zinzi, okay. See Tawang there, bro. Please save the video. It'll be up straight after this session. It'll be uploaded. It's gonna be uploaded after the session, man. Otherwise, thank